right.
Well, thank you everyone for coming to our panel. Bernie, why don't we start with a little bit of introduction of you. Tell us about how you end up becoming the Republican nominee for the Senate and your start as a businessman, owner of car dealerships, and how you started a blockchain startup.
Sure. So let me start with the beginning. I was, like most candidates running for office in Ohio, I was born in Colombia, South America. Joking, of course. Moved here as a kid to South Florida, ended up in Ohio about 20 years ago with the opportunity to buy a tiny little car dealership. Turned that one dealership into a group of 15 dealerships representing 30 brands. And then about 7 years ago, decided that I was going to sell my car dealerships and start a technology company. And what we did is we used blockchain as the underlying technology to sell software to state governments so that when you buy a car, you don't get a paper title, it's a digital representation of that ownership. So we did that. Everybody thought I was crazy, very, very hard to do. I sat through many meetings when I talked to state officials, trying to explain to them what blockchain was. Very frustrating. The good news, fast forward, we're in 24 states. In West Virginia, we're basically the Bureau of Motor Vehicles. It's a company called Champ Titles. Very proud of what the team has been able to do. And I decided to run for office for one simple reason. We have people in Washington, D.C. that are grossly unqualified to do the job that they're doing. And we can sit back and do nothing about it and watch this country go off a cliff, or we can jump in and actually serve the country to make it better, and that's what I'm doing. So we're very happy that we won the Republican nomination 2 months ago for the U.S. Senate, and I'm up against the most anti-crypto guy in America. It's actually not Elizabeth Warren, it's Sherrod Brown, who's the head of the Banking Committee in the United States Senate.
How did you first learn about crypto and blockchain? What drew you to it to make you want to start a company?
Sure. I lived in Boston prior to moving to Ohio during the 90s tech boom. I always was fascinated by technology. And then in the early 2010s, my youngest son came home one day, like a scene from The Graduate, and said, "Dad, I got one word for you." I said, "What's up? What's that, Kevin?" He goes, "Bitcoin." He goes, "Just take all your money and invest in Bitcoin." By the way, this is like 2013, 14, so I should have listened to my son. But as a joke, I picked up the phone and called my financial guy and said, "Hey, Kevin says I should take all my money and put it into Bitcoin. What do you think?" And he said, "Well, please don't do that, but you know, blockchain is really interesting." And from that initial conversation, we started talking about different applications, ways that we could use blockchain in an industry that I knew a lot about, which is the automobile business. And that's what birthed Champ Titles. So I sold my dealerships. He left his job at his big financial firm, and now the company's thriving and doing really well.
Wow, that's a really interesting background. So a lot of things happened last week with the overturning of SAB 121, the pass of FIT 21 in the House, and the SEC's surprising approval of spot Ethereum ETFs. A lot of people in the crypto space kind of take it as signs that these are White House potential softening stance towards the crypto industry. I'm curious, what is your take on that?
Yeah, if you lived anywhere near the Midwest, you know what a cicada is. These are political cicadas. They're coming out of the ground. They're going to do just enough for the industry to neutralize those voters, pacify them temporarily, hope they win an election, and if they do, they're going to go right back at it. Ultimately, the extremists in the Democratic Party do not like any of this. They want to have total and complete control over the financial system. They will be a disaster for the crypto and Bitcoin industry, quite frankly, for innovation generally. It's not just crypto, it's crypto and Bitcoin and blockchain today. It's AI, machine learning later. They want to control all these technologies because they have this belief that government drives innovation, not individual founders and companies. That's the philosophical divide. So don't be fooled by the temporary good news. It is all going to be on the line November 5th in that election.
Now, when you talk to voters in Ohio and maybe across the country, how much do they care about crypto as an issue? And to what extent is there a passionate, crypto-focused voting bloc?
Yeah, I mean, the 1.2 million people in Ohio that own crypto care a lot about it, especially running against a guy who wants to quote unquote ban it, whatever that means. And then they also, the rest of the people who aren't crypto owners, you got to look at it as a freedom and liberty conversation. You know, we make our own money, right? We make money, we work, we get paid. The government takes a sizable chunk of that. We can agree on that. Why should they tell us what to do with the part they didn't take? We should be allowed to do with our money what we want to do with our money. That's not a difficult conversation, combined with the fact that you're crushing American innovation. This technology that you're seeing here in Austin today will develop somewhere on Earth. The question is, does it happen in America or does it happen somewhere else? We need to make certain that it happens here in the United States.
What type of suggestions would you, what type of crypto policy would you want to have?
We have to have regulatory certainty so that if you're building one of these startups here, you understand what the guardrails are going to be, what the path is going to be. You know, it's already really hard to do a startup. Building a startup, especially in a new industry, is probably, as I don't have to tell all of you, the hardest thing you could possibly do. The last thing you need is uncertainty on the political side, so you don't know if what you're allowed to do even works. In my case, when we were creating Champ Titles, one of our big obstacles, it was basically the nuclear obstacle, was that there was a federal odometer statement that by law had to be a wet ink signature with 3 copies. Well, you can't create a digital title if you have a physical piece of paper that's required. So we had to pass a law to have certainty. So certainty is really important. The problem is that right now, the regulators don't want to give you certainty. They purposely want to give you uncertainty so they can crush the industry.
Outside of crypto, what are some of the key issues that your campaign is focused on?
Well, I mean, we're focused on the fact that we have illegal immigration as the only path into this country. I mean, we're not too far from the US-Mexico border here. We've allowed 10 million people to cross into this country illegally. That's insane. I'm a believer in legal immigration. I did that myself. We should accept people here on our terms in a controlled manner. Energy is a big deal. Inflation is killing Americans, especially working class people in Ohio. We need to have an energy dominant strategy. By the way, crypto can play a role in that because you can raise the baseline energy loads with mining. That's a really good application where energy and crypto can be good partners in that. So those are the things that we got to do. And we have to have a leadership role in the world to make sure that we have stability around the globe.
There's some skepticism about Bitcoin mining taking a lot of energy. Do you worry about that in your state?
No, not at all. I mean, cloud computing and AI are going to take a lot of energy also. And that's why we need even more energy produced here in America. And it's got to be reliable, affordable, and abundant. And today, that's coal, natural gas, and oil, and nuclear. Those are the types of energy sources that we should be dominant here in America.
There's some reports today about how Elon Musk discussed crypto policy with President Trump. You're endorsed by President Trump. Have you ever discussed crypto policy with him or talked about blockchain or crypto?
Not specifically, but as you know, he understands what NFTs are. He understands the importance of having innovation here in America. I think that's why you're going to see an administration come January of next year that's forward-looking, that makes certain that innovation happens here, as it has for 75 years now. And we have to ensure that that happens. We're in a moment in time when we've had this incredible success as a nation in creating innovation for the rest of the world. And now we have people who want to decide that they know best what innovation is. Do you think that Elizabeth Warren should decide what kind of cable your iPhone should have? Think about that for a second. Or alternatively, do you think that an engineer at Apple should make that decision based on what they think is best for their customers? That's not even a close call. That's the kind of insanity that we're dealing with in Washington, D.C.
Do you think any progress has been made in terms of enacting on crypto legislation?
You need people who are enacting that legislation that understand the technology. And the reality is today in the United States Senate, you don't have people who know how to use email. and we're asking them to regulate digital currencies. That's incongruous, right? You need to have people at least have a basic understanding. Otherwise, they're driven by special interest groups that will tell them, I need you to vote this way or that way. You need people with that fundamental understanding. Hopefully, as I look out in the audience, I look at people who say, hey, I'm going to do what I'm going to do in the private sector, but at some point in my life, consider going into elected office, serving, and then coming home. You know, Vicky, my wife is great supporter, been married 35 years, but she's made it clear for me that she's all in for me to do this for 2 terms, if I have the honor of being elected, but a 3rd term is with a second wife. So it's important for us to cycle out the people to go to DC.
Now, with presidential elections approaching, what do you think is crypto's role in the elections? The industry is becoming more of a political force with a lot of super PACs raising a lot of money. What is your take on that?
Well, this is the election. The bottom line is on November 5th, here's 2 scenarios, and it's only 2 scenarios. If Joe Biden gets reelected with a Democrat Senate, this industry will not live here in America. Just will not happen. Alternatively, if Donald Trump wins and I win my race, which means we control the United States Senate as Republicans, we have a shot, and it's not guaranteed, we have a shot at making certain that this industry grows and thrives here in the United States. There is no redo on November 6th. On November 6th, we lose this deal, it's not happening here in the United States. They don't want it. Understand, they do not want a decentralized financial system that disrupts the current system. They want the exact opposite. They want a centralized banking system controlled by politicians in DC that tell us what to do, what to buy, and when to buy it. That's their vision.
So what is your outlook on crypto legislation? I mean, we keep hearing that it's coming, but it keeps getting pushed back. We're unsure about the future of FIT21. When do you think we might have crypto legislation in the United States?
We won't have it this year. We won't have it next year if Biden and Brown get reelected. Just the reality, it will not happen. They don't want regulatory certainty. On the other hand, we win this election, then we'll have that legislation done within 90 days.
Are you a crypto owner or Bitcoin owner?
I had when you run for public office, other than having your kindergarten behavior examined and put on the front page, they examine your entire financial portfolio. So I made a decision to move everything to U.S. cash. So I sold all of my crypto that I owned, just to make it simple. I don't want to give the Democrats anything more than they already have in terms of running stupid ads.
Now, the industry experienced a lot of challenges before this recent surge and sort of comeback. Particularly in 2022, we had the collapse of a lot of once very prominent crypto startups and companies like FTX. What do you think are the biggest challenges of the crypto industry today?
Politicians. The biggest challenge the crypto industry has is politicians, which is crazy because you think in any other business, you typically think developing a technology is a challenge, people's a challenge, capital's a challenge. In this case, it's the political environment that's the biggest challenge. We have to create a political environment in which these businesses can grow and thrive here in America.
What are some of the key factors for that type of ideal environment?
You have to have regulatory certainty and broad enough guardrails so that the industry knows what the rules of the road are and that these guardrails exist that allow the industry to grow and thrive here. By the way, Europe is leading America right now in that regard. That's the first time that's ever happened, where Europe is more sensible in terms of innovation policy than the United States. We got to play catch up, we will play catch up, and we'll get it done next year.
And I guess going back to Ohio, are there businesses in Ohio, blockchain related or crypto businesses that are thriving or contributing economically to the state?
Oh yeah, absolutely. We have a great organization, a blockchain association led by a gentleman named Andrew Burchell, who's doing a great job of leading an effort. When we get this right, by the way, Ohio will be a great state for you to come and do business. We have great land, we have great talent, we have affordable, abundant energy. Ohio will be a great place to do business once we get this done properly next year, and the Ohio Blockchain Association is going to lead with that.
Are you thinking about any legislation or state level sort of support for crypto businesses?
Yeah, there's a lot of things that can be done. The biggest thing we have to do is work with the industry to make certain that we craft legislation that makes sense. So again, the rules of the road are understood. That's the most important thing.
I guess what type of legislations are you thinking about?
Well, you have to separate the money crypto from the tech crypto. It's two different things. There's a misunderstanding around the role that miners play, the role that custodians play. When it comes to the banking system, if you're going to have a bank that is a custodian, that should be a federally licensed institution, much like you see in a non-digital world. But right now you have banks doing that on a state-by-state level like Wyoming. That needs to happen nationally. You have to open that up. We have to have regulation that matches what these things are and not have regulation that's twisted into a pretzel to figure out what you're regulating. A new industry with old ideas. That's what's got to change. You have to have alignment there.
There has been a lot of talk about stablecoins and the potential for a stablecoin bill as well. What do you think about stablecoins?
Yeah, I mean, they should be the legislation needs to be drafted in a way that's consistent with an understanding of what they do and what role they play, so that you have certainty and that you have proper guardrails. You obviously want to make certain that things are there. But right now you don't have any of that. I mean, SAP was a good example, right? A staff accounting bulletin. That doesn't sound very ominous until you read it. And then you realize it's insane government overreach in that bulletin. Those are the types of things that stymie the industry.
Do you feel like there's now more of a bipartisan support for the crypto industry after the voting of FIT 21 last week?
Yeah, you have some Democrats that are looking at this a little bit more with more insight, and that's good news, because obviously you need to have more bipartisan support for this. It honestly shouldn't be a partisan issue. I shouldn't be up here talking about this as a Republican. It should be just a common sense issue. So the fact that Democrats are coming to the table, I think that's great. I, again, am suspicious of how much of that is election year politics and how much of that is real conversion. I said earlier, I don't believe a lot of it is conversion. I think a lot of it is politics, but we'll see. As you know, right now, most of the Democrats on the financial services side take their marching orders from Elizabeth Warren. She's been pretty clear. I mean, she's been pretty clear on where she stands with crypto and what she feels the industry is all about.
I think we're running short on time. Is there anything else you'd like to leave the audience with?
Thank you for being here. Thank you for innovating. Thank you for doing a startup. What you do is really, really hard. Don't get discouraged. Don't listen to the naysayers and plow through all the negativity.
Thank you, everyone.